the fight game. There's been so many different stories, from inspirational stories like the Rocky story, right? Like Israel Adesanya going and beating Alex Pereira after losing to him multiple times, right? There's stories like Matt Hamill, a deaf man who became a very high-level fighter and contender. There's beautiful stories, but there's also some dark stories. And today we're getting to the dark stories in the fight game that I find interesting. So we're going over a few different characters today. We're going over the War Machine story, Phil Baroni, Joe Son, Joshua Fabia. That's what we're going over today. And these are some very highly interesting stories in the fight game. So, people become fighters for multiple reasons. There's been times where I've been in the gym training and we always get some weirdos. There's one time this dude came into the gym and he was he was a quote unquote ninja, and he was saying that he could kill people with a blade of grass, blah blah blah. Had him spar one of the guys, he got destroyed. There's been people who've came into the gym who want to learn how to kill people for whatever reason. They just have a screw loose. There's, in this world of martial arts, it attracts people with screws loose. It attracts people who have been damaged in life. It attracts people who want to learn how to defend themselves. It attracts all different types of people. And like Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man. But some people, they want to become fighters and learn how to fight and really just do damage to people for nefarious means, So we're going into those people today. And the first one we're starting with is this weirdo Joe Son. Now, Joe Son was a guy who was in the Austin Powers movies. He was in the Austin Powers movies. He was the guy in UFC way back in the day. There's a clip, you can look it up, of a guy who's getting held down, getting punched in the balls in a UFC fight. I believe it was UFC 3. And it was in Puerto Rico somewhere, but he's the guy who's in the red underwear, is getting punched in the balls. Big Asian guy. So this dude, fast forward through the acting career and blah, blah, blah. This dude ends up becoming a pedo. That's literally what he ended up becoming. He ended up becoming a pedo, and the details of his story is what we're going to kind of get into a little bit more here. In 2008, he was arrested in connection to a 1990 sexual assault after DNA evidence linked him to a crime. In 2011, he was found guilty and sentenced to 7 years to life in prison, or to prison in California. While incarcerated, he was convicted for beating his cellmate to death and was sentenced to an additional 27 years voluntary manslaughter. So now, imagine that when Joe Son was fighting in UFC, he was out there being a rapist. You know what I'm saying? Confirmed. That's not alleged, confirmed. There's DNA evidence to prove it. While he was fighting in the UFC, way back in the day, also back in that time, a lot of people weren't necessarily martial artists. There were street fighters coming into the game, and it was a no holds barred crazy event where you're gonna fight people. You know what I'm saying? So you had guys like Tank Abbott, who's a reformed man, changed his life. You had guys, different types of people, you know what I'm saying, who definitely had a screw loose. So now Joe Son, back when he was fighting in the UFC 1990, this man was doing crazy crimes. That's just what they caught him on. You know what I'm saying? Ends up getting arrested. They put him in jail. And his crimes, I believe, was for some pedo type stuff. You know what I'm saying? So fast forward, he ends up, and also if you're locked up, the worst things you can be locked up for is grape and being a pedo. You know what I'm saying? So he's in there, he's locked up. Obviously, he knows how to fight, gets into it for whatever reason, ends up offering his cellmate life in prison. You know what I'm saying? 27 years life. That's a crazy story. That's a wild story, actually. Very wild story. Joe Son, he actually was out in Orange County. He got caught with all this, from being in movies to being in the UFC to being locked up for sexual crimes. Crazy story. And what I see here is like, some people want to learn how to fight and learn how to become a badass, and so they can take advantage of people. You know, Joe Son, he was, you know, obviously he got locked up for the original crime, right? So whoever he did that crime to probably couldn't defend themselves against him, you know, without lethal force. And then he ends up getting locked up, and his cellmate, you know, whatever happened, we don't know what happened, but his cellmate couldn't defend himself against him, got offed. So some people do want to learn how to fight so they can just take advantage of people and, you know, just beat people's asses, and there's nothing they get to bully people. Me personally, I wanted to learn how to fight because when I was growing up, I was always a skinny kid, and I got into a lot of fights, and at some of them I would lose. And you know, I was always just felt super weak and small, and just wanted to really, really learn how to fight so I could defend myself, so nobody could mess with me. You know what I'm saying? That's why I wanted to learn how to fight. So it came from a place of wanting to know how to defend myself, because I knew what it felt like to be weak and helpless, and I didn't want to. I wanted to take my power back and learn how to fight. So that's why I started fighting when I was a kid and started learning how to fight, and it gave me immense confidence and changed my life. Some people come in with nefarious means, you know what I'm saying? So next, War Machine. War Machine, War Machine. This is a crazy story. Crazy story. And you know, I think there's so many red flags going into the story that many people could see. And you know, it's just a crazy story. So for me, first time I ever saw War Machine was on the Ultimate Fighter way back in the day. I was a teenager watching Ultimate Fighter, and I thought it was wild. The dude's name was actual War Machine, and he was actually a good fighter as well. Pretty good fighter. The thing is with this story, War Machine, it is what I kind of found in this story is pretty interesting to me. So War Machine was an MMA fighter / porn star. You know, he's dating his girl, Chrissy Mack, who was a famous porn star back in the day. And long story short, he ended up like assaulting her and almost beating her to death. You know what I'm saying? Like serious injuries. I don't think she's ever been the same since. You know what I'm saying? So, which obviously there's a lot of traumatic, and the details of the story are very, very gruesome. Like he was basically torturing her because they just had issues. Now, you hear stories of let's say a police officer who come home and beat up their wife, right? You hear these types of stories. Here's the thing. War Machine, right? I believe the reason he's in jail today is because of the steroids that he took. And he was on steroids, and he couldn't really you know, the roid rage turned him crazy. Yeah, he had issues beforehand, but when you're on steroids, I think that and all the testosterone is flowing through you, now you become dangerous to society. And that's what I truly believe with some of these stories. Guys who have a lot of testosterone, who don't know how to control themselves, who are broken emotionally and mentally, and also just have low emotional intelligence, but fueled with the testosterone from the steroids, you know, they weren't never meant to have those levels of testosterone because their bodies don't permit it. Some people's bodies can have immense amounts of testosterone naturally, and their body permits it. You know what I'm saying? So they can control it. These guys' bodies aren't meant to have a ton of testosterone. And War Machine was a guy who was doing TRT and doing steroids. When you go to he had a YouTube page. He had a YouTube page called get this. It's called Alpha Male Shit. And the first video you see on there is TRT in a nutshell. Let's watch that video real quick.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I got some time.
Let's watch that video real quick and see what he's
talking about. This TRT shit right now. So let's do this. First of all, fucking any fighter that applies for a TRT exemption is fucking retarded, because you're automatically putting like the microscope on yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you're telling everyone that you're trying to juice, but you want to get away with it. So like, it's like if you're a criminal and you're getting away with all your crimes, you've been like a good criminal for like a long time, and then all of a sudden you want to join the Hell's Angels, and like, oh yeah, I want to join the Hell's Angels because it's cool, you know. Well, guess what, dickhead? Now you're fucking under the radar. Now you got a federal jacket. Now the feds are always gonna be watching you. So now all the little crimes you used to get away with, you know, that you never got caught for, and now you're gonna get caught because now they're looking at you. You know what I mean? So you just put yourself on blast. So any fighter that tries to get a TRT exemption is stupid, because now you're telling them you're doing it. You know what I mean? Now, like, you know what I mean? You're better off just to shut up about it and just do it the way most fighters do it, and most professional athletes do.
You know what I'm saying? So now we know he's on steroids. We know he's on TRT. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the reason where the decision making goes left. Now, as a person, do I think he's just a terrible person who is an aggressive, massively aggressive person? This might be fucked up to say, it might be controversial to say. I never met him personally, so I can't speak on that. I don't know that he was like a true like criminal like that. You know, I think he was a dude who was a broken dude who he had a really bad life growing up, and had very poor emotional control, and the steroids on top of that just turned him into an animal. And he did some stuff that he shouldn't have never done, and when you're in relationships and you don't have a certain level of emotional maturity, things can go left. Is very dangerous. And I think that's really what it came down to. But my main point is the steroids. The steroids.
Most all professional athletes, who know, I don't know, there's no way to say how many, but I'm willing to bet 70% of all professional athletes, take steroids or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? But they don't get caught because it's not hard to pass the test. You know what I mean? So like, by getting the dumb TRT exemption, now you're putting yourself under the microscope. Now they're gonna be watching you close. It's stupid. Anyway, so like, but TRT is a joke anyway, because all right, so let's say I'm 32. I'm really too young to get a TRT thing. But because if I got my testosterone tested naturally, I would be I'm still in the youthful ranges. So they wouldn't give it to me. But say if I wanted to get a TRT prescription, and I want to make it legit and get a license so I could use it.
All right, yeah. So let's keep going. Let's see what else is on there. All I wanted was a Slurpee. Let's see this video.
Oh my fucking god, I'm so fucking pissed off right now. Dude, I've been craving a fucking Slurpee since last night. I want a Slurpee. I want a fucking Slurpee. So I'm driving to go see fucking Christy, and I see 7-Eleven. So I go and I want to get a Slurpee. And I fill out my fucking cup, and the fucking bitch who fucking works there fucking tells me that I need to take off my fucking hoodie on my head.
That's what the steroids are. That's what the steroids. You see what I'm saying? Do you see what I see? You guys see what I see? That's where the steroids comes into play. when you have crazy amounts of testosterone that is not supposed to be in your body, that's where the roid rage kicks in. That's why he's in jail now. You know what I'm saying? And that's the unfortunate story of War Machine. You know, now that he's in jail, he turned his life over to Christ and really made a different change. And now he's married and stuff. And I'm sure he's a different man. But steroids, you know, everyone wants to act like there's no consequence to taking steroids. No, there is. Your health, your mental health, these things can affect you when you're on this stuff. So, you know, it's something that I really, really am strong about. Like, I don't like how guys like Gordon Ryan, these different guys, are just promoting steroids. You know what I'm saying? To the kids. The kids, yeah, you might take it and you might be fine, but someone else might take it and might ruin their life, and they might end up, you know, offing some people, as we see here with War Machine. You know what I'm saying?
I was like, what? Huh? And this some black dude, a customer, was like, hey, oh, she wants you to take off your hoodie. I was like, yeah, I heard what you said. Why am I gonna take off my fucking hoodie? What? I thought this is fucking America. Why? I have to take off my hoodie when I want to fucking go into a store? It's fucking raining. It's fucking cold.
You know what I'm saying? The dude's juiced out of his mind. He's juiced out of his mind and he's raging. And that, now imagine you're in a relationship and you have intense emotions from relationship. He's not going to be a cool, calm dude like, all right, let me see what's going on here. Let me figure out what's going on. Okay, let me see your perspective. No, he's going to rage. You know what I'm saying? So steroids are no joke. And, you know, I think it's important that we look at that. But that's the story of War Machine. He's in jail for life, essentially. You know, he's in jail for life. Next, Phil Baroni. Now, this is another story. Yo, this is another story what I'm talking about. All right. Now look at this. Phil Baroni clearly on steroids. Let's get a full message. Clearly on steroids. The New York badass, that was his name in the UFC. He was a good fighter as well, exciting fighter. You know, he's never like a champion, but he was a good fighter, exciting fighter. Now, Phil Baroni has always been on steroids. You know what I'm saying? An immense amount of steroids. And I believe at one point he was a bodybuilder, but you could tell dude's clearly on steroids. Now, Phil Baroni, you know, he probably wasn't never super emotionally aware, whatever. Long story short, he ended up offing his girlfriend in Mexico. Real talk, in a brutal fashion. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when they found him, like, oh, you know, he didn't mean to do it, blah blah blah. He's just blah blah blah. I think he when you're a fighter, okay, when you're a martial artist, when you're an athlete, when you're a man, okay, first off, you're way bigger than women, all right, and you're way stronger. I train a lot of women. I see the difference. You know, even though people want to act like there's no difference nowadays, which is insane to me, there is a difference, especially when you're trained. When you're a trained martial artist, if you hit a regular person, they're not trained to take the shots. You know what I'm saying? So you might be fighting in the cage and taking all types of damage, and you think it's normal, but no, your body's trained for that. Now, when you're doing this, and now he gets into it with his girl, he's beating on his girl. He doesn't realize how dangerous he actually is, you know, and how dangerous these shots that are just regular to us actually are. Same thing with War Machine, you know. So he hits his girl, ends up offing her. You know what I'm saying? And Phil Baroni, now he's in prison in Mexico, and he's getting like he got not having a good time. Main thing that I'm talking about with War Machine and Phil Baroni is the abuse of steroids. You know, that's why both of them are in prison right now. So when people think this is a joke, that like, okay, maybe they had a poor moral compass and low emotional control, but that is doubled and tripled because of the steroids, you know? So it's not a joke. It's not a game to be on the juice, you know? And for the kids that, you know, you're looking up at this guy, looking at that guy, and you think that you have to do this stuff to achieve your goals, you don't. And it might ruin your life if you do. You know, as we've seen with Phil Baroni and as we've seen with War Machine, you know, unfortunate. These two guys were pretty good fighters, you know, and it's disgusting what they did as well. You know, no respect for that, you know. But this phenomenon is something that we see, you know, with police officers, you know, people on steroids. So that's just something to really think about and look at, you know. Next, this story right here is actually the most wild story. The story of Josh Fabia and Diego Sanchez. Wild story, wild story. Now, like I said before, I'll give you a story, okay? One day I'm in the gym hitting the bag. This dude sees me hitting the bag. He can clearly tell I'm well trained, clearly tell I'm a fighter. Comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, I train fighters. Let me train you." So of course, I was gonna ask and you know try to read this person, see who they are, or whatever. I'm like, okay, what you fought before? No, I train fighters. Where do you train? I train fighters. So this guy is just some guy who's a bum who you know, who is coming up to me very confidently and he wants to train me because he can see I already have skills, right? So this guy is very similar to someone like Josh Fabia. Now, some fighters will fall for this because what I'm saying is the dude in my story, he didn't have my best interest at heart. He just wanted to come train me for whatever reason, but he doesn't know how to fight and he doesn't know anything about fighting really, but he can trick people into thinking that he does because he's very confident about how he does it. But if you ever see him hit the bag or whatever, he's not good, right? So now when we go to someone like Josh Fabia, he tricked Diego Sanchez and made Diego Sanchez think that he's like legit because Diego Sanchez was in a mode where he needed help. You know what I'm saying? He needed guidance and he needed a coach and he needed attention as a fighter. You know, and this guy showed up, charlatan. This guy showed up and you know tricked him, came in there, took his money, made his life a living hell, stalked him, kind of ruined his reputation, started taking videos of him and making the OnlyFans, making like weird suggestive comments. Josh Fabia, that's his name. A crazy story. Now, fast forward in this story, at some point he was threatening Diego Sanchez's life, and you know, everyone saw the weird ass stuff that was going on, which we're gonna pull up right now. I'm gonna show you some of this weird stuff that these dudes were doing. Now, this dude basically ended up trying to he ended up basically trying to sue the UFC, right? His whole purpose was it seemed was he was maybe potentially trying to damage Diego Sanchez, you know, and then you know try to blame it on the UFC potentially, you know, allegedly. You know, that's what a lot of people speculate. So look at this video right here real quick. This is very interesting, very telling.
Can I analyze the controversy with Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So I'll talk about this situation and some of its characteristics, then I'll offer my analysis. Diego Sanchez is a mixed martial artist who was born in 1981. He started competing in 2002 and spent time in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, from 2005 to 2021. He was a successful and popular fighter known as the Nightmare. He competed in 4 different weight classes: featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, and middleweight. In 2019, Diego Sanchez hired a man named Joshua Fabia.
Before we even get into that, and Diego Sanchez was a dog, man. He's a great fighter, great guy as well. You know, Diego Sanchez, I first saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, and he was just an incredible fighter. You know, really good fighter. He had the heart. You know, he didn't have all the skill in the world, but he had the heart, and he really, really pushed it. Incredible fighter.
who claimed to be able to function as an MMA trainer. In addition to a trainer, Joshua Fabia represented himself as a model, mentor, guide, and the founder of something he referred to as the School of Self-Awareness. At this school, he offers various courses on topics like healing and movement.
Just a charlatan, a charlatan. But in the fight game, these people are all over the place. Whether they're managers, whether some of them are like fake coaches like Josh Fabia, they're out there, you know, and some fighters are easily tricked, you know.
He says his training method will transform a person from the inside out. He claims the main objective for his school is to help people who want to be of service to the world. He suggests this comes from having empathy, compassion, and love from oneself, which can be accomplished using ancient wisdom and modern innovations. Fabio writes on his website that when he was 9 years old, he fell into the role of physical therapist for his grandfather and helped him make an 85% full recovery.
Cap. That's a big cap. Oh, really? At 9 years old, you became a physical therapist and saved your grandfather? These people will always have these crazy stories and these weird backstories, and you can't confirm them, and you can't, you know what I'm saying? It's just always, that's a sign of a charlatan, right? But now I want you guys to look at this. Look at some of the training methods they're doing. Like, okay, Diego has his, it's just weird, you know what I'm saying? It's just very strange. But it gets worse. It gets much worse.
It's straight.
It gets much, much worse. Let me show you. Look at this. Look at this. So this dude has Diego Sanchez upside down, and he just beat him up. Just punch him, beat him up, and just do damage to this dude. You know what I'm saying? And he convinced him that this was a good idea. He's kicking him in the head while he's upside down. And Diego can't defend himself here. And this is what they're showing us. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know what they're doing when the cameras aren't on. You know what I'm saying? And how bad this actually got. So, anyways, long story short, this dude just keeps doing weirdo stuff. And eventually tries to sue the UFC for or threatens to sue UFC for like damage to Diego, or he was trying something like that. Anyways, fast forward, this guy ends up, making Diego Sanchez pay him $100-something thousand, and Diego paid it just to get him out of his life. So crazy story. And this is an example of another guy who was some type of cult type-ish leader and talks very confidently, but probably doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, if Diego Sanchez were to fight dude, he'd obviously beat him up. You know what I'm saying? But fighters are different types of people. You know, a lot of fighters are very emotional, and they actually get their therapy in the cage, going through that traumatic event in the cage. Some fighters are just fighting for the fun of it, you know what I'm saying? And they love to fight. But the dark stories in the fight game, there's many more, but there's also many more beautiful ones as well. But the biggest takeaway I could give you guys from these stories is don't mess with steroids. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about getting strong and getting jacked and blah, blah, blah. No, it can have serious repercussions on your health, it can have serious repercussions on your mind, and you can maybe do something that you wouldn't normally do because of the altered state you're in. And that's the biggest takeaway that I've seen from this story, because War Machine, Phil Baroni, the crimes that they did are absolutely inexcusable and disgusting. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't rock with that. I can't agree with that. I can't rock with that. You know, I came into this game, martial arts, to learn how to defend myself from people, you know, and defend myself in general, because I felt like it's a skinny kid who couldn't fight. So knowing how that feels to be vulnerable, even though, you know, it's been many years now and I'm much stronger and I'm an adult and blah, 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 I still know how that feels, you know? So for someone who builds himself up and learns how to fight and is actively fighting the best guys in the world, for you to victimize civilians and victimize specifically women who are half your size is disgusting. I can't rock with that. I don't respect it. And this is probably one of the most ugliest things you could ever do. But a big part of why they believe that this was acceptable is because of the steroids they're on and the mindset that they were in when they're on steroids. And now not everyone is even capable of something like that. But when you're doing the juice, it's just something to remember, you know, and just understand that it's not just a game. It's not just you're getting strong. No, you're altering your mind. So Josh Fabia, Phil Baroni, War Machine, Dan Josan. These stories are some of the most darkest stories in the fight game. Crazy stories. And I thought it was interesting. So if you guys have any stories, drop them below. That's it for today, guys. Much love, and it's good to be back. Training my balls off every day. I'm getting ridiculously strong. The next fight, you're gonna see a different animal. You know, I feel very, very strong right now, like very physically strong. And I feel like I'm getting into my man muscles now, and I feel clear-minded, and I feel very good. You know, I feel happy. I feel very good, very strong. And I think you're going to see that in the cage, you know. So stay tuned and much love. Peace.